Imagine you cannot watch this video because you cannot access YouTube. Even worse, you have no access to the internet. How would you feel? This is not a joke. It is just a reality and one of the crazy laws in North Korea. In this video, we will be unveiling 12 of the craziest laws in North Korea. Number 12. North Korean media is government controlled. This first law already kills the interest of everyone who is a media freak. In North Korea, watching foreign movies in a foreign language or listening to foreign music is illegal. In fact, they are considered as criminal activities punishable by the law. Back in 2015, Kim Jong-un ordered the destruction of all cassette tapes or CDs and drives that had any state-banned songs. These state-banned media also have different punishments by the law. American movies attract death sentences, while Indian movies are punished with a prison sentence. In fact, the citizens have access to only 3 TV channels, and each of these channels is strictly government-controlled. You could only watch what the government wants you to watch. Number 11. The pregnancy and childbirth laws are unique. This is one of the few decent laws on our list, so enjoy it. In North Korea, families are advised to give birth due to the very low birth rate. As a form of gift for conceiving, pregnant women receive free medical checkups monthly and weekly when childbirth is near. Better laws are applied when the woman gives birth, like the 240 days of maternity leave. That's right, women are given 240 days of paid leave from whatever jobs they do, 60 days before and 180 days after giving birth. The best of the laws get applied when a woman gives birth to triplets, as it is seen as a blessing. The children are given official gifts from the leader himself, an ornate silver or gold knife for boys, and a silver or gold ring for the girls. The mothers are also given the title of maternal heroine. Lastly, by law, the children have to be named in a particular order that completes an ideological slogan. Here's an example. Triplets can be named Cho Kang-guk, Cho Song-guk, and Cho Thae-guk, with each middle name spelling out Kang Song Thae-guk, which means a strong, prosperous nation. Number 10. North Korea has approved haircuts for its citizens. Up next, we have a law you'd definitely not like if you love to play with your hair. You probably didn't know that haircuts could be prohibited, so welcome to North Korea, where certain haircuts are prohibited. In fact, there are 28 haircuts that the government approved, 18 for women and 10 for men. Meaning, in North Korea, you can't get a fringe or wear any form of spiky hair simply because the government says so. The law even goes ahead to specify dimensions of hair length for men. It states that younger men are not supposed to keep hair longer than 5 centimeters, while older men have the luxury of growing their hair up to 7 centimeters. For women, while single ladies can keep longer, curlier locks, married women are expected to keep their tresses short. Ideally, the hairstyle should be the least of any government's worries, but in North Korea, that is not the case. Number 9. The family also takes the fall for a defaulter's offense. Another of North Korea's bizarre laws is this. Just like any other country, North Korea has a low tolerance for crime and is known to go hard on criminals. However, North Korea also has a reputation for taking things a little too far. In North Korea, suicide is highly frowned upon. So much so that even if one member of your family commits suicide, the entire family could be punished severely. What's worse is that if an individual commits a crime, not only is that person punished, but 3 generations of his family are also punished. Can you imagine sending 3 generations of one family to a labor camp? As absurd and cruel as this sounds, this is the norm in North Korea. Number 8. Thorough surveillance of tourists. Just in case you'd love to visit North Korea and think you can escape it as a tourist, well, you can't. The tourists are not spared of all the weirdness. Tourists visiting North Korea are searched thoroughly upon entering the country. They are expected to hand their phones and computers to the migration officials and could only get their devices back when leaving the country. Now that's just extreme, but that's not all. Tourists must be accompanied by tour guides at all times, and are expected to religiously follow and do whatever the tour guides say. Any tourist who strays from the watchful eyes of the tour guide or even tries to engage in conversation with a local will be arrested. Additionally, some sites and routes are designated for tourists, and tourists are not expected to leave these routes. Any tourist who dared to go into a store or other facility that wasn't in the specified area would have been arrested. It's like a military base at this point. Number 7. Making international phone calls is prohibited. Yep, you heard that right. In North Korea, you are only permitted to make domestic calls. Even these domestic calls must follow strict regulations. That means no international calls are allowed. Be it for business, pleasure, or personal reasons, you aren't allowed to make phone calls outside of North Korea ever. The rationale for this bizarre law doesn't even make it any better, as it is seen that information cannot enter or leave North Korea under Kim Jong-un's regime. How extreme are the authorities in enforcing this law then? Well, anyone caught making an international call on a cell phone purchased illegally in China risks being hanged to death. Quite very extreme. Number 6. There is no access to the internet. Remember that absurd law we mentioned earlier that restricts internet use? Well, here are the details on that. In North Korea, the average person cannot access the internet. What? Yes, the North Korean government is very particular about information coming into and out of the country. This means that access to the internet is religiously regulated, so that only authorized government employees are allowed to use it. Some professionals who have gone through a list of processes can also get clearance. It is interesting to note that even those officials are limited in their ability to search the internet. For a fun stat, there were just 28 live websites that were accessible according to a 2016 North Korean assessment. Number 5. North Korea is not the place to practice your religion. We might be closing up on our list, but North Korea's crazy laws aren't getting any crazier. This law mentions that in North Korea, praising religion or displaying any sort of religious observance is highly prohibited. So, what do they worship then? Well, Kim Jong-un is the sole deity that North Koreans are permitted to worship. Some North Koreans who have been caught practicing Western religions have been punished for it. Tourists are not exempted from this madness. In fact, many tourists have been detained for having religious items such as Bibles in their possession. The Constitution has a right of freedom of religion in it, yet it's a myth essentially because many have been reprimanded by authorities for exercising that right. Number 4. Citizens can't travel freely. You have a broader idea of just how crazy North Korea is now. However, if you were under the impression that the North Korean government only clamps down on routes and sites where tourists can visit, then you are in for a huge shock. In North Korea, you just can't wake up and decide to travel outside your hometown. What do we mean? Well, if North Koreans wish to travel, they must first seek and obtain permission from the government. Shocking as this might sound, this is not even the worst part. If you were to somehow obtain this permission to travel, then transporting yourself to your destination would become an even bigger problem. In North Korea, only the elites have access to railway services and private driving privileges. This leaves the more rural citizens with the option of bicycles, tractors, and extra-on carts as the primary means of transportation. Number 3. In North Korea, getting high is allowed. Okay, this law just completely warps the reality of how restricting North Korean laws are for us. For an extremely conservative country, it would come as a real shock to know that North Korea allows its citizens to use marijuana. Oh yeah, The sales, possession, and usage of marijuana are all completely legal, and you can get as high as you want anytime you want to. This is also the same for cannabis, and it is not unusual to see cannabis growing along highways and roadsides in North Korea. Whatever may be the reason for this legalization of the growth, sales, and usage of marijuana and cannabis, we don't know. We are glad that at least the North Koreans have one indulgence amid all these bizarre laws. Number 2. Voting is mandatory. This doesn't sound so bizarre because voting is a fundamental human right, yeah? Well, in North Korea, voting is compulsory for everybody. Citizens don't get to choose whether to vote or not, so there is always a 100% turnout of citizens during elections. But this is not even the weird part. In North Korea, elections are a big sham. Although there is just one candidate who has been nominated and whose name will only appear on the ballot, the law mandates that North Koreans have elections to choose their leaders. In the past, the circus even went as far as making more than one contender appear on the ballot. This so-called contender would be a political actor paid by Kim Jong-un to lose. What a circus. Instead of checking the box next to the name of the candidate they prefer, voters cross out the name of the candidate they don't want. This indicates that anyone who crosses out Kim Jong-un will be in tremendous danger and will either be imprisoned or put to death. In North Korea, voting is a do or die affair. Number 1. Being born in North Korea means you have to die in North Korea. With all the bizarre laws in North Korea, shouldn't the citizens just up and leave? That's the logical thing to do, right? Not quite, and this law explains that. It is illegal for any North Korean to leave the country. To cross the country's border, you must present official documents stating the reasons for wanting to leave the country. Any citizen caught trying to flee or even miraculously crosses the borders without official papers is sent to a labor camp or could be gunned down by security personnel and killed. Even though death is a likely punishment for trying to flee the country, every year thousands of refugees attempt to flee. And you can't blame them. Really, these laws are more than enough reason to want to leave the country. What other crazy laws have you heard about North Korea? You might have even experienced one of these laws firsthand as a tourist. We'd love to hear all about it in the comment section.